You're listening to another great podcast in the MyMac Podcasting Network.
TechFan Podcast number 506. I'm Tim Robertson, joined by David Cohen, he of the cracked iPad.
Sometimes
happened? You broke your iPad.
I broke my iPad. Sometimes the universe seems to be telling you, there's an iPad event coming up. Let's help you out here. And this is what it felt like. So I was on, we didn't record last week because I was on vacation, and I went to Center Parks, which is one of these kind of outdoor cabin lodge type places. It's like a big resort, but it's outdoorsy. Took my iPad with me and pulled it out my bag when we got there. We'd only driven a couple of hours, and we had a lot of stuff, but my iPad wasn't, the bag with my iPad wasn't thrown anywhere bad or anything like that. And it was in a padded case, but I pulled it out and there's a big crack right across the screen. That's my 11-inch M1 iPad Pro. So fortunately it wasn't bad enough that I couldn't use the iPad. It was one of those, those cracks where you can barely see it when the iPad's on.
Yeah, but it's there.
But it's there, and not only that, if you ran your finger over that part of the screen, you got the deformation on the LCD because obviously the glass wasn't intact.
Yeah.
So it needs sorting out. Now, that being an iPad Pro that I bought 18 months ago for over £800, I had Apple Care on it because why wouldn't you? So I had it changed out. They can't repair these, and so they changed it for a refurbished model. And I promptly sold that to a trade-in site, and I'm going to buy. I think I'm going to go up to the rumoured 12.9-inch iPad Air that's alleged to be coming on Tuesday at the event.
That's one of the rumours, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the rumours. They're also talking about OLED Pros as well in 12.9 and 11-inch sizes.
Why not go to the OLED? I mean, OLED looks gorgeous.
It does look gorgeous, but the problem is the Pros are really expensive, and you're not getting that much extra for the money. I mean, I reckon the Pros will probably be about another £350 more than the Air, and I don't think just an OLED screen and they've got better cameras, but nobody ever uses the cameras on the iPads.
Nobody. No.
Yeah. They basically are going to have very similar. They might have a faster processor, but you don't need a fast processor on the iPad because the OS holds everything back. So I'm just not sure. Particularly having owned a Pro, I recently set up my daughter's new iPad, which is the entry level one, even side by side, it's really hard to tell the difference between these devices, and but it's hundreds of pounds more money. And I'm just not sure it's worthwhile. So I think the Air is a sweet spot for me, and I do think I'd enjoy the larger screen because I tend to use mine on its side with a keyboard most of the time, like a computer. So I think I would benefit from the additional screen size, especially as I'm getting older.
That's why I went with the iPad Pro. I don't remember which one I have now though. I think it's the M1. Might be. Did they have an M2?
They have got an M2 as well. They released an M2 the following year, so you might have the M2. But this is the issue. This is the issue now with the iPad, is that you can have a whole generation more processor, and you can't tell because even the entry level ones, the cheaper ones, the older ones work perfectly fine. And really, even the M1 was massive overkill in the iPad because
this doesn't even say what it is. I mean, it says it's an iPad Pro 12.9-inch, 6th generation.
6th generation is an M2.
Okay, so I've got an M2 12.9. Yeah. I went, I had my last iPad for a very long time, and I liked it fine, but I did want a bigger screen. So that's why I went with this one. And they didn't have the Air at this size.
Yeah.
They still don't yet, technically.
Yeah.
Maybe they will. Maybe that's what you're getting.
Yeah.
Bigger isn't always better, but it is when I use my iPad because it's mostly reading. Occasional videos if I'm on the deck or something. Yeah. But it's mostly reading. But even video is better if it's bigger.
Exactly. And the thing is, I don't use my iPad kind of handheld very much anymore because I tend to use my phone for that now because the phone screens are bigger. So if I'm sat on the couch and I want to just browse through the internet or something like that, I'll use my phone rather than the iPad. So the iPad tends to sit on the desk or a table, and it's when I'm doing something kind of a bit more intense or I'm doing a big load of reading and I want access to the keyboard. So yeah, that's and to be honest with you, had I not been aware that there's this rumor of a 12.9-inch Air, and I was going to stick with the same size, I wouldn't have changed I would have just kept with the replacement. Thank God for the Apple Care, because it cost me £39 to have the replacement machine with Apple Care.
Which is, would you sell it for?
Which is, I sold it for £450. And had I not had Apple Care, to get that replacement from Apple would have been £587.
Well, but you paid $150 for Apple Care on that?
Yeah, I've been paying monthly, but it's around that. I've had it for 18 months, so yeah.
So you doubled your money.
I'm still ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Anybody buying an iPad, if you buy the entry level one, maybe it's,
I always get Apple Care from all my Apple devices. My MacBook my Mac Studio, which, I mean, it's not being moved or anything, but still.
Well, yeah, it might.
My iPad, my iPhones,
and on the iPad, Apple Care Plus gives you not only repairs, but it also gives you protection against accidental damage, lost, or theft. So it really is quite good value.
It is
for what I think I was only paying about $5.99 a month for that Apple Care on the iPad.
Look, if you use it once, you paid for it for two different machines. I mean,
exactly. The only thing I would say, based on my experience, Apple Care Plus for an iPad offers you an express replacement, where they will send you the because they can't fix these. The guy in the Apple Store told me, we can't fix these, we just had to replace them. So they will offer an express replacement service where they will send you a new iPad, and then you send the broken one back, and provided you send it back within 2 weeks, then they don't charge you. They put a hold on your card, but it's not actually taking the money out.
Right.
So I would recommend anybody wanting to fix their iPad to do that, because I didn't do that. Like a chump, I thought to myself, well, I'm in work on Monday, and the Apple Store's probably only 10 minutes walk away. I might as well just go in there and get it done. So I did that, and despite the fact that I booked the appointment 4 days before, and as I've just said, Apple knows, they know I've got insurance, they know that I've got a cracked screen, and they know they can't repair the iPad in the store. So I was quite annoyed when I got there, and he told me all of that, and then he said, but we haven't got any of those models in. So we'll have to order one from Apple, and that'll be 5 days, and then you'll come back and pick it up.
Yeah, that's annoying.
And that's annoying. And then he looked at my face, and he said, hang on a minute, let me just check. Oh, yeah, the other Apple Store, the one at Trafford Centre, it's about 4 miles away in the big shopping centre, has got one in. I'll ask them to hold it for you. But then I had to go down there and pick it up. So I don't understand, if they know what they need to do, why they couldn't either get the parts in. Certainly, what the best thing to do would be to make sure that they have the stock to deal with your case. And if they don't, or if they can't, or if they won't, they should tell you when you book the appointment. By the way, they have no stock, or they have low stock, and you may have to order one anyway.
Yeah, you might as well just do it online.
Exactly. I'm recommending to all our listeners, if you're in this situation, just get the replacement direct from Apple. Don't bother with the Apple Store. They're all very nice and friendly and all of that, but it's just much less convenient. And you'd think it'd be the opposite case, but it isn't. So that was a learning experience there. But anyway, yes, I will be ordering a new iPad on Tuesday.
So when is it's Tuesday, right? That's the Apple event.
They've moved the timings. So it's 3:00 in the afternoon here, so it must be in the morning for you.
That's weird. Usually they're like 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Let loose event is what it is.
That's right, and this is one of these.
Yeah, and it shows
video things. It's not live. So.
Yeah, and we know that it's going to be an iPad because the graphic is holding a stylus.
That's right.
There's only, unless they're going to bring touchscreen to a portable, like the MacBook Air or something, which I don't think they're going to do anytime soon.
No,
and it wouldn't be at this event. This is definitely iPad.
The iPads are overdue. I don't think they've been changed up for a couple of years now, so they are due. And there's a lot of speculation. Will there be a new design? The last entry-level iPad moved the camera from the top of the iPad to the side, so that when you're using it landscape, it's like a laptop camera. Yep. Which makes more sense for the video we all do nowadays. So they're expecting them to do that for the iPads here.
They're also saying a new Magic Keyboard. Are you going to get that?
Yeah. Well, so probably not. The Magic Keyboard is really, really expensive. It's like as expensive as an entry-level iPad.
I have one for my... I love it. I think it's fantastic.
It's a great device, though. The older ones, there was problems with the rubber perishing over time. My brother had one that he's used quite a lot, and he's just basically reskinned it with a D-brand skin because it was so gross and it was all falling apart. So maybe they'll improve that. But the problem is, I'm about to drop a big chunk of money on an iPad. I don't really feel like spending 50% more to get that particular keyboard. We'll have to see. If it's compatible with older devices, then I might get an older one, or I might just use a standalone keyboard to start with.
Yeah, as long as it's USB. I mean, there's a million
USB or
of them.
Bluetooth.
Yeah. Or I'm sorry, that's what I meant was Bluetooth.
And
there's a million iPad keyboard cases on Amazon under $100.
Yeah, and you can also get these freestanding keyboards, like these portable folding ones that have a keyboard and a trackpad in, and those work fine with the iPad too. So I'm going to get the device.
As long as you get a case that you can prop up your iPad.
Yeah, but I always do that anyway. If I don't buy a keyboard, then I would buy a case that props it up. But I'll take a view on it once I see what actually comes out and how compatible it is with older accessories. I do tend to try and buy used stuff if I can, just because it's a little bit better for the environment than buying brand new all the time. The iPad, I kind of got to do that because I want to go up to the bigger screen, and it might as well see what the new one's like.
As far as the OLED, I mean, yes, I get that the OLED screen is going to look fantastic, but I've owned this iPad for at least a year, maybe a little longer now. I can't remember. Whenever I got it. I've never once looked at it and go, man, I just wish the screen was better.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody's ever looked at pretty much any iPad of recent generations and thought the screen sucks.
Yeah.
Unlike other devices where you definitely, as you go down the cheaper end, the screens are not ideal at all.
No.
But provided they're spending enough on the panel. I've got one of those Amazon Fire 11 Maxes, and that has an excellent panel in it as well because it's a more expensive device, so It looks good.
Yeah, I don't have any need to upgrade my iPad, even if they jump to it from, the current one is an M2. If they go up to the M4, which I don't think they will, I think they'll go right to M3. Although they could on the Pro.
But it doesn't make any difference because
the
OS can't really capitalize on that.
No, it does, because we're starting to talk about a massive upgrade to Siri/AI built in, and it's going to be done on the processor rather than the cloud services like a lot. Well, we'll get to this in a minute, some of the standalone AI devices, but no, Apple's whole thing is it's not done. I'm sure it'll do some in the cloud, but most of it, voice recognition and seeing what you're seeing, that sort of thing, will be done on the processor itself. So that's where the M4 will come into play.
But I personally don't believe that the hype around these machine learning NPU processors on these chips is as valid as people like to make out. I think the people who are making out you need the new processors are trying to sell new hardware. I can't believe they're going to throw everybody with older stuff under the bus and say you can't have LLM because your processors are too slow. Particularly not the M1 and M2. Those are, have redefined the entire industry. So I'm skeptical that there's going to be a perceptible difference there.
I do. I think there's going to be, because there has to be a cutoff point that this new technology is only going to work efficiently on the new chip. You can still do it on the old one, but it's going to be cloud-based. It's going to be slower.
Yeah, maybe. But the problem we've got is even the cloud-based ones now aren't very good.
Well, that's the point. That's why the new chips are so important.
I'm not sure it's a chip model. I think it's the way these LLMs work. I don't think they've got enough secret sauce in. They're very clever. They're very clever
let's move on to that then.
Yeah, okay.
So over the last couple weeks, kind of two, I guess you'd call them AI accessories, if you will. But they're standalone devices technically you don't have to connect them to your phone, but from what I'm reading in
I don't think you can.
I don't think you can
to
either.
your phone. No.
The Rabbit, which is kind of a, how do you describe it?
So it's designed by the same people who did that Panic Playdate.
Yeah, the Playdate is amazing.
Yeah, and it looks like a little version of that. It's a little orange square with a OLED screen on it.
And it's got a scroll wheel that you use for navigation and a button. And it does have a camera built in. And then, of course, and I think we've talked about this, the Humane AI pin, which kind of looks like an Apple Watch, but it's magnetized and it goes on your clothes. Yeah,
and it's 4 times the price. It's $800.
So I've read extensive reviews on all of these because this show is called TechFan, and I'm always interested in new technology. And if we are starting to get, I hate that we call it AI because it's totally not, but whatever. AI gadgets, is this something that would come in handy? And every single use case that I've seen for these, they're virtually useless. This is first out of the gate products that are trying to get VM money or VC money that I think they probably are. Until they're released and they're garbage, the founders have made their money from all the foolish venture capitalists out there, and then they sell off the company to someone like Microsoft, who maybe can incorporate into something else, but probably not. But they just disappear.
Well, there's two elements to this, and there was a discussion on Accidental Tech podcast this week that kind of I thought actually summarised one of the problems they face. So they can't. People go, oh, well, you could just do it on the smartphone. It's like, well, you can do it on the smartphone, but only if you're the manufacturer of the smartphone. Apple does not allow a device like this to integrate into the iPhone the way that you would need to really make it a proper AI assistant.
Correct.
So they are compelled because of that to produce a standalone device, which means creating everything: the hardware, the software stack, the back-end services, the cellular, and the interface. So in some respects, that is actually a competition problem, because if Apple and Google were more open with access to their platforms, you wouldn't need to build these devices. You could do them as an app, but you can't, because you can't get the tight integration. But the other reason they're doing it like this is, once you're in that situation, you've got to build it yourself. They're trying to exploit the relatively short runway of building a runaway success device, kind of like the flip cameras did.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny you said that, because both of these devices remind me of early digital cameras that were trying to make consumer friendly, easy to use, and I thought the flip video cameras. That's what I don't know why you said that, but it's so funny because it's hot. It comes out, it gets everyone's attention, and a year and a half later, it's completely gone, and you never see it again because
basically the capabilities of the flip camera were incorporated into the phone. Everyone forgets the first iPhone couldn't do video, and the pictures weren't that great as well. Flip came along and produced a device that was super simple to use and allowed you to do, for the time, relatively high quality video in a handheld, cheap device.
And it did really. They were clever. They were small. Yeah. They're smaller than your current iPhone is.
Yeah, and people
they were fun.
They were, and people started carrying them around, and they were a hot success. Yeah, they were a hot success,
and they were relatively cheap too.
Yeah,
they're like $125.
I think this is very much the Rabbit model. Like Humane is often their own thing, because they're
Humane will go out of business first. Yeah,
they've got real Apple pretensions without the ability to deliver that.
Yeah.
But Rabbit, I think, has taken a very sensible approach to this. And $200 is not cheap, but $200 is, for people with disposable income, the sort of money where they might go, oh, well, maybe I'll try this out.
Yeah. The problem with is, I think people are going to try it out for $200. Why not? And then they're going to find that they never use it after the first week.
It doesn't work. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't work. That's the problem.
Yeah. So Rabbit in particular, their approach is they are trying to develop something called a language. Instead of a large language model, they want to do a large action model. So they basically want to create their AI to actually go, rather than using an API, to actually go to an online web app or something and manually do things as if it was you. If they can pull it off, it's really quite clever. But the problem is they're nowhere near pulling it off at the moment, and they've launched the product. So at the moment, the product does very, very little. And what it does do, it doesn't do well because it's got the same issues that all cloud LLMs have got, where it hallucinates, it makes things up that aren't true. It gives you definitively assertive answers that are wrong. And sometimes it just doesn't work at all. So you ask it a question, you wait 20 seconds, and you don't get an answer.
Right.
So, effectively, it's a similar experience to the worst of Siri.
iJustine did a review of the Rabbit, and it felt like, and I should expect this from her because she's got a fairly large following online, but not like she used to. I thought that her review was actually going to be a review, and it so totally wasn't. It felt like a PR stunt. Well, but it did have some neat things that I wish my phone could do. Like she points it at food and says, "What am I looking at?" And it tells her, and it seemed pretty accurate. Now, it was a very pristine background, spotless, and clearly things are separated, and so, okay, that's not really a review. Go to McDonald's and try that.
The Marcus Brownlee review was much better.
Yes, it was.
As you would expect, because he is a proper tech reviewer. And he, he was famously dinged by Humane for he said the product was the worst product he'd ever tested. And they really, really didn't like that. But I think to be fair, the headline was a little bit hyperbolic maybe by that, but I watched his review for both these products, and I think his review process was exactly fair.
I agree.
And he very much made the point with the Humane one. He said this just doesn't function the way it's being billed, and it's $800, and that's why he felt it was a really bad product.
For $800, it should do, at the very, very minimum, 50% of what you advertise it that it can do, and it can't even do that.
Now with the Rabbit, he gave them some credit for the price, but he said, but it's still $200 and it still doesn't do most of the things its billed as being doing. So he said, you can only give it some of a pass because the Humane is 4 times more expensive. But he said, but even at $200, this isn't great value.
Well, let me ask you this, David. If it was $50, would you buy one?
Not at the moment, because it doesn't do any of the things you want it to do. And now, some people will say, but they've just launched, it'll get better. And the problem with that is that you don't know how much it's going to get better. Will it get better enough that people will use it? The other difficulty is it is still another device to carry and another device to interact with rather than with your phone.
Well, that's the biggest problem, that people do not want a second device. They want their phone to do these things. So do you think if Apple comes out with, whether it's this next event or farther down the road, and I think it's probably farther down the road, with the M4 and the AI capabilities that it's supposedly going to have, because that seems to be the consensus rumor out there, do you think that Apple coming out with just asking Siri, what am I looking at? Those kind of things, hey, what can I make with this? And it just does it.
Yeah.
Do you think that kills these products immediately?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because why would you want the inconvenience of something separate? Unless they've got some other unique selling point. The only one I could think of is privacy, but obviously they're not going for that angle, and Apple always does. I've got to be honest, I'm still overly skeptical of the whole genre at the moment.
Oh, I am too. No question.
I don't think we've had Siri for a while, as good or bad as it is. We've had Google Assistant, we've got Amazon Alexa, we've got all of these different things. But the thing is, I don't think many people feel comfortable speaking to their phone all the time. I think they'd rather interact with a screen. And you see this day by day. I don't think many...
I think some of the problem there is education. I think a lot of people... I'll give you my wife, for example. If she wants to know, is it going to rain soon? She grabs her phone, she fires it up, and I just ask Siri. And I ask her, why doesn't she do that? And she says, I don't know.
Well, it's because she doesn't trust it to get it right.
That's true, too.
The real thing. The difficulty with all of these things is that if you have to phrase your questions a certain way to get the right answer, nobody wants to do that. We want to communicate the things the way we do
Siri
to each other.
And all of these things. That's where AI is going to come in. It's going to understand natural language.
But I also think it needs to be more interactive, because you know what? If I say to you, let's do lunch. I'm saying to you now, let's do lunch tomorrow.
Yep.
You're going to say, well, okay, but
we're 3,500 miles apart.
Yeah. So what are we talking about? Are we talking about a virtual lunch? Are we talking about a lunch meeting? What do you have in mind? Now, I think the AI needs to be able to do that as well without being prompted. Otherwise, it's going to fail, because it's going to continue to do things wrong, because it doesn't have the and the difficulty is that for all it's called AI, these models don't have any intelligence at all. They are very, very sophisticated language
That's
models.
exactly what my problem with all of this has been since the very beginning, that we're calling something AI that is not AI. I don't mean to be a dick to these companies or anybody else who is starting to use this language, but this is not AI. This is not artificial intelligence. It has nothing to do with intelligence. It's language models.
It's like you take a child.
Inquiries.
And it's like you take a child and you teach it the English language, but at the same time you operate on the child's brain, so the actual critical intelligence settings of the brain are turned off.
Exactly.
You then end up with a child who can speak perfect English, has no understanding of what it says or what you say to it.
Right.
Right? And all it can do is say, oh, I recognise that question, so the likely answer would be this. That's exactly what a language model is. And the problem is, if you don't have the intelligence behind it, it's not very useful. It can make the query process much better, because obviously you can have a conversation with it, but unless it understands what you're saying...
I don't know how this is going to come through over the microphone, but let's try this. Larry David's Kirby Enthusiasm.
Siri, directions to Wolf's Glen.
Directions to Great Wolf Lodge.
No, Siri, Wolf's Glen Restaurant.
One option I see, Woods Garden Supply on Benedict Canyon.
Siri, Wolf's Glen Restaurant in Westwood.
One option I see, the Wolseley Restaurant in Burbank.
No, you're not listening. I said Wolf's Glen Restaurant in Westwood.
A wolf's den is a habitat that provides wolves.
You stupid fucking idiot. It's Wolf's Glen Restaurant in Westwood.
One option I see, Jane Wolf Close.
No, you fuck Wolf's Glen Restaurant.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Oh my god, you fucking moron. It's Wolf's Glen, you cunt.
Bun cake is a cake that is baked in a bun can.
I said you cunt! I said you cunt!
Sorry, I didn't get
I told you a cunt!
One option I see, Carson City, Nevada.
Ah, shut up!
Well, there's our explicit tag.
Shut the fuck up!
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Oh, fuck you!
Sorry for all the cursing there, so now I'm going to put the explicit tag.
Yeah.
But that is exactly right.
Yeah.
That is
and also as well,
right.
There's something else there, which is, as humans, when something doesn't do what we want, we do get frustrated.
We do.
And when you get frustrated, then your level of coherent communication goes down, which doesn't help these things out even more. I'm not just talking about the
What
swearing.
option I see is Carson sitting over
No, we've all had that situation where you're speaking to somebody and they're being very corporate and not very helpful, and you kind of get a bit ticked off, and your voice maybe goes up a little bit, and you become a bit more curt, and then they go, well, I'm sorry, our policy is we don't have to take abuse from customers, right? And at that point they refuse to help you, and those sorts of things are definitely a problem that I don't think these large language models are designed for, is for people getting upset with them when they're useless. And it's going to happen because at the moment they are pretty useless.
Yes, they are. And will the new faux AI stuff improve it? I think it will. I think that it is a new technology. It is going to replace Siri and Google Assist and all Alexa and all that stuff. But it has to be an order of magnitude better.
Yeah.
And that's the question that we just simply cannot answer yet. It has to be able to recognize when I say, what am I looking at? Or what is this? Or can I eat this? And it should know, oh, okay, Tim has an allergic reaction to, I don't know.
Shellfish.
Yeah. So, no, you can't eat this.
Yeah.
Or can my son eat this? No,
Did you just shift the danger?
Yes, I did.
For talk to Siri from yourself to your son. You monster.
I am. But that's the point, though. It has to have that level of intelligence, and I don't know if it's going to, because how do you input all that? How do you say, okay, I want you to know my son is allergic to shellfish. I want you to know that my wife can't use soft soap brand because she'll have an allergic reaction. I work here. My wife doesn't work. My son's in high school. Do I have to teach it all this stuff? And nobody's going to want to sit down and do that.
No. And the other problem as well is that Siri, Google Assistant, whatever, well, it's been through several name changes, Amazon Alexa, these things have existed for, over a decade now?
Yeah.
They've up until the development of these LLMs, there was never any prospect of them getting much better than they already were. My concern with all this AI stuff is there's a lot of money and hype going into it at the moment.
That's what I said earlier.
Companies are going to want to have the tick box to say they've got AI, right? And then once it's there, they've got the tick box. They're not going to keep on funding billions of dollars to make it much better. They're going to say, well, we've got it. And then it will
I think that's the issue with Siri right now, honestly. Yeah. Siri got to a certain point about 6 years ago, and it's never got better. Never.
No. And so the question is, without the VC money and the hype into AI, whether the development that needs to happen to turn these things into really useful assistants is going to happen is a question mark to me, particularly from Apple, who really have a long reputation of announcing something with a splash and then disbanding the team who did it and going on to something else.
Well, Google has the same problem. Amazon has the same. They all do it. Do it. It's all for marketing, it seems. If it doesn't catch on right away, it just languishes on the vine and rots and falls off. Or worse, it doesn't fall off. It just sits there. And people keep partaking, wondering why it's such shit. I sold a car to a guy, brilliant young guy, moving out to Cupertino about 4 or 5 years ago. He bought a Toyota, and he got a job with Apple. And he really wasn't allowed to speak on it too much, but he couldn't help himself when he found out what my background was.
Right.
And he was like, oh, my God. And he was going to work on the Siri team. That's his job. And I told him, well, here's the problem with Siri, and this is why it hasn't gotten any better. And he was like, yep, that's exactly what Apple knows all of that. The team I'm joining, our job is to make it a lot better. And I don't know what happened to him, but his team sure the hell didn't make it a lot better. It's exactly the crappy version that we've had for probably 5 or 6 years. It did get better after the initial launch. But this is such a forward-facing product with an Apple. You would think somebody would be working on it.
Well, the other problem you've got is once you've used it a few times and it doesn't work, then you're never going to use it again. Because why would you? So why would you go? It's human nature. If we mentally put in our mind that that doesn't do what I need it to do, you're not going to go back and try it again.
Right. The biggest update to Siri lately was you don't have to say "Hey Siri," you can just say Siri. Whoa, thanks. Wow, that's
But
you saved
the problem
me a whole
is,
syllable.
If you've been burned by Siri before, then you just forget it exists and you don't use it. I've got to be honest, when I do dictate, I mean the dictation as well on the Apple devices has gotten much better. And when I dictate a reply to a text message on my Apple Watch, I have an Ultra, so it does it locally.
Yep.
And it's really, really good.
Yep.
But even knowing that, I don't do it that often.
Yeah, because you don't trust it as much. But what if it's AI powered and it is way better? See, that's
the problem is
the potential is there.
The potential is there, but it has to be better than 99% reliable. It has to be 100% reliable, or you have to be able to easily correct it via conversation. Because the problem is that it doesn't matter if all the time it gets most things right. That one time you ask it to do something and it screws it up, and you end up being booked into a restaurant in Atlantic City, when you live in the UK, then at that point you're going to go, well, this is a waste of time. You're going to go, if I type it on my phone, it always works because I'm in control.
Right.
And so that's the issue, is the bar for it to for this software to work properly is extremely high. And I don't think modern consumer electronics meet that bar.
Well, that's where
no,
they don't. But that's where the new technology supposedly is going to come into play. That it's going to do it locally on the processor. If they can actually get there, I'm in.
Yeah.
But
color me skeptical.
I still think we're a generation away
Yeah.
from, and when I say generation, I mean a technology generation, which honestly is only 18 to 24 months, or at least it used to be. Maybe it's longer now, because Moore's Law has been broken. That stopped working a while ago. And for what Siri does, for what I use it for, it does a really decent job. I ask Siri to set a reminder. I ask it to send my wife a text, remind me to call my dad later, set an appointment for such and such. But I can't tell Siri to order the same lunch that I got from, DoorDash yesterday. That doesn't work. And that's the kind of things I would like it to be able to do.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. But we will see. I mean, obviously we've got this new event on Tuesday, and then we've got WWDC in a few weeks.
That's where we're going to hear anything about the M4 and AI. But do you think Apple calls their AI system Siri? Do you think it's AI Siri? Is it?
Well, the natural answer is to go sure, because that's their brand for that sort of thing. But then
it's universally known.
The downside that is it's universally known, but it's not universally accepted to be great. So maybe you rebrand it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, it could be that Apple takes the approach that they're not actually going to individually brand this. They're just it's going to be part of their overall offering, and it's not having a standalone brand. It is kind of ridiculous at the moment. I mean, for God's sake, a couple of weeks ago, Logitech, who make mice and keyboards and headphones, announced that they were integrating AI into their mouse software.
Yeah, why? What's that going to do?
Because it's going to reduce their stock price, because AI. And it's just like, that's just stupid. Stupid.
I saw someone's reaction to that on a positive note, and they said, well, think about you're using your mouse, and clearly you're going to go pause this video. Well, the cursor would just jump immediately to that pause button because it knows that's what you're doing. And I'm thinking, how does it know I'm going to that pause button? And I don't want my mouse moving around by itself.
That's all very well, but that's not what the Logitech AI function does. It is just simply a button.
That listens to you.
Connects you to an LLM, just like all the others are.
Yeah.
And this is part of the problem, is everyone's going, well, it could do this, it could do that. And it's right, yeah, but it doesn't, and it won't. That's the issue.
Yes.
And also as well, I don't want 150 different ways to access AI on my computer.
No.
Yeah, I don't want to have buttons everywhere and logos. It's kind of crazy like that with Microsoft. The flipping Copilot thing is showing up everywhere at the minute.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't want this. They've even announced that new computers will have a dedicated Copilot button on the keyboard. And immediately I think, well, actually, if it's real AI, you don't need a button. You just need to
talk.
So just like having an assistant, you would just like to go. Well, do this for me, please. If it was really proper AI, look, that everybody wants it to be like the computer in Star Trek, where you go, computer, tell me this, do that, and it knows and it answers and it gives you correct answers. It's not that, and it's not going to be that for a long time.
No. But we're closer now than we've ever been, I think.
Yeah.
I think.
Every time I think about that, I think with Star Trek 4, where Scotty tries to talk to the Mac.
Yeah.
And it doesn't understand him, obviously, because it's a 1980s Mac.
Yes.
Right. And he goes, no. The guy goes, no, you need to use the mouse, and he picks the mouse up and talks into it.
Yeah. So here's a good example of where wearable AI could come in handy. If someone's blind, you have something like a humane pin, because it wouldn't work with an iPhone unless you're holding it out in front of you. I guess you could wear glasses that has a camera built in, and possibly some sensors, radar, or something like that, but could help navigate. You're approaching a street in 5 steps. Take a left.
Here's the problem, though.
Puddle of water in front of you.
That's already been solved by
a stick.
an additional intelligence, which is seeing eye guide dog. That's exactly what a guide dog is trying to do.
Yeah.
And you know what? Even with development, I reckon that a guide dog will be far more. Will continue to be more effective for something that's safety critical for a blind person than
Maybe.
using some doodad on their glasses or their wrist.
Well,
Besides
at
which,
the
as
current
well,
technology levels, yes.
Yeah.
But I'm talking
Besides
about
which,
3 generations from now.
The
I
guy-
would disagree.
well, the Humane Pin Mark IV is never going to be able to give you a cuddle like a guide
I'm not
dog.
talking about humane. I'm just talking about technology as it advances.
I'm still saying I think most blind people would rather have a seeing-eye dog than a piece
Yeah,
of technology.
they're a lot nicer.
Because you know what? The first problem is how does a blind person recharge that? Because they can't see where the port is.
It's wireless. It just recharges.
Dogs recharge too.
Yeah, but you got to feed them.
Just give them food.
You got to feed them.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Tesla recalls pretty much all their Cybertrucks. Shocker. At the time, it was 3,878 because the little plastic piece on top of the accelerator pedal can detach and wedge itself, and you're 100% acceleration now. Thanks. That's awesome.
In a vehicle with stupidly overpowered acceleration.
Yeah. Now, the good thing is the brakes do override the acceleration. So if you're pushing both down, it's going to stop. But that's not really the point.
Not only that as well, I think the problem with that is if you get acceleration like that, I'm not sure that everyone's natural response is to hit the brake. I think most people will be trying to lift up the accelerator pedal.
Only if they're an idiot.
Well, yeah, maybe, but when you're in a stressful situation, people panic.
How is Tesla still in business? Seriously.
Yeah, well, I don't think
they build pretty garbage cars. They really do.
Well, that's the problem. Is that for all the technology they crow and for all the way they undoubtedly have transformed the EV business, the point is when it comes to the basics, these are the sort of things that no other car manufacturer would do because they've got the right level of experience.
I wonder how long they're
Tesla
going to be in business, to be honest, because they fired a whole lot of people, including the whole team whose sole mission is making the next car.
The problem is Tesla is run by Elon, and Elon's using Tesla stock to underpin the craziness he's doing over at Twitter. And so everything is a short-term move to try and juice Tesla's stock price so that he's got the leverage he needs to continue Twitter to run. And the problem is that is disadvantaging Tesla because what they need is they've needed for many years a proper long-term strategy, developing new models, understanding where the market's going, understanding how they're responding to that. And instead, they're being driven by the whims of a guy who, as he gets older and older, appears to become more and more erratic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's going to drive the company into the ground.
People were really excited about this Cybertruck, but it was clear to industry insiders for a while that there's a big move, especially in the U.S., and I know this is going to shock you, David, away from the bigger vehicles and more towards something smaller, more fuel efficient. I'm not talking about electrics. I think electric vehicles are in big, big trouble right now. Big trouble. Now, more and more people, from what I'm hearing online, customers coming in, aren't even considering electrics now. There's been such a bad... I mean, there was Chicago, it got really cold, and their Teslas wouldn't even take a charge. You couldn't charge it at all.
Yeah.
You can't have a vehicle that's that unreliable when it gets cold, because guess what? Huge swaths of the world get very cold. And we're not talking about, negative 100 degrees. And no, it was just cold, and they couldn't charge.
I think the issue is the American market in particular is very much its own market. I think outside of the US, electric is still doing okay, not perhaps as
but it's losing ground there too. More and more people worldwide are starting to look more towards hybrid rather than all electric.
Well, certainly the issue with hybrids is that in 10, 15 years, all the petrol cars are going to be banned, and it still remains to be seen what's going to happen with hybrid cars at that point. But the US market is definitely its own thing, and you've got particular challenges there, and I wouldn't argue with you that the US market is in trouble for EV.
It is, and I think big time.
The problem is that all of the car companies have gone into EV looking at it as a cash cow rather than developing a full sustainable business model.
I agree.
And that means looking at where people use their cars and how they have to be able to perform.
Hydrogen is a way better option, and I don't know why, other than Toyota and Mazda, nobody's really seriously considering it because this is a better model.
Because the governments and the fuel companies have just basically said they don't want to invest in hydrogen infrastructure.
Well, the oil companies don't want to invest in gas either or electric either, but
but the fuel companies are short-sighted because if they switch, first of all, they can make hydrogen out of oil. You can get hydrogen out of oil. So to start building a parallel hydrogen infrastructure would be sensible for them. But it is a chicken and egg situation like all of these things. The infrastructure's got to be there before the manufacturers will invest in developing the vehicles. Seems to me that it would be much easier for the overall world's infrastructure to switch to hydrogen rather than go to EV, which is completely different. But there's no willingness to do that at the moment. I think part of the problem is environmentalists are a bit down on hydrogen because they know that, as I've just said, the oil companies and all the energy people would rather generate hydrogen from oil because it's cheaper than to do it in a way that's sustainable, such as breaking it down. You'd have to break it down from water using electricity from the sun, and they know that most people won't do that, so you don't get the carbon savings that they would hope. But I think the difficulty we have is that certainly EV technology, great as it is, and I do think they are amazing, it's not fantastic for absolutely everything. I've just been through the winter here, and I saw the range of my car drop from 310 miles down to about 240.
Yep.
And if you're relying on that range, I wasn't, so it's not a big deal for me, but if you're relying on that range, then that's a problem for you. And certainly you don't want to be coming out and finding your car is frozen solid and won't charge.
As someone who now has a hybrid, I'm going to the gas station once every 3 weeks instead of twice a week. That's huge. Yeah. I'm averaging right now 38.1 miles per gallon. That's fantastic. Now that drops in the wintertime because the gas engine does need to kick on to warm up the air in the cabin more often, but even still, I was still getting 32 miles to the gallon.
And my wife's hybrid Yaris that she's had for 5 years, regular tops over 50 to the gallon.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
much smaller vehicle than my RAV4, but
definitely. But you know, I mean, it does. Different vehicles suit different people for different things. And famously, this is why Toyota has been very slow to engage with electric vehicles because they think hybrid is a better option.
They think hybrid's a better current option.
Yeah.
They do believe in non-fuel, non-petrol cars. They do. It's just the infrastructure's not there and it's not being widely embraced. And I think what's been happening in the last 6 months 100% proves that out.
Yeah.
But
what would be interesting is if something like Formula One switched to hydrogen.
That would be interesting.
That a lot of stuff that happens in Formula One then dictates what other people do.
Well, especially from a safety standpoint.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff that we take for granted in passenger cars, a lot of that started in Formula One, and you know.
Interestingly enough, I read an article on the BBC this morning about a hospital car park. The sprinkler system was being replaced, and so they banned EVs on the advice of the fire service because they said that EVs can catch fire.
Oh,
now
bullshit.
the stats are that gas cars catch fire much more often than EVs do. There is a problem that if an EV catches fire, even with the sprinkler system, you can't put it out.
Right.
But they are much less likely to catch fire unless you crash them.
That's just a fire chief that doesn't understand science.
Exactly. But obviously, you know,
that's frustrating.
Loads of people with EVs who turned up for their hospital appointments weren't very thrilled when they couldn't park for that reason. But it just goes to show there's a lot of misunderstanding about this, and there would be the same about hydrogen. If with a hydrogen infrastructure, everybody would be thinking about the Hindenburg.
Yep.
And thinking, although those must be more dangerous, when in fact they're not, because hydrogen is really light, and if it leaks out the car, it just goes straight up into the atmosphere. And it's only if you're carrying hundreds of tons of it in big gas bags above you that's going to explode like the Hindenburg.
Although, if that were true, though, it'd probably make Formula One a lot more exciting.
It certainly would. Well, maybe we should just put random explosives into the cars anyway. And so, if you get three strikes and then you're literally out.
Yeah. Did you see this article at Engadget that's a little bit clickbait, but I kind of agree with it. It doesn't matter how many Vision Pro headsets Apple sells, because a lot of people have been focusing on, they're not selling as many. But I don't think Apple cares how many they sell of the first generation. I think the first generation is simply a test bed for two different things. A, will people accept it, putting goggles on your head? And B, how can we start making this smaller? We've got to release a product so we can move on to version 2 and version 3. And I don't think, look, Apple's got the money that they could take a loss on every headset that they sell, although they're not, and still not care. They're still making a profit for every one they sell, don't get me wrong. But Apple is in a unique position that they can take this risk with a high-end, much better than what Facebook has right now, and write it out, make it better and better and better. And I don't think Apple cares how many they sell. I don't really think they care. They'd love it if a whole bunch of people were buying it. But at the end of the day, that's not version 1's purpose.
Well, I think Tim Cook is a production guy. I think if they were selling gangbusters, he would find a way to sell more of them.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the metric that they're particularly focused on, because I think, as you say, this is a test the water product.
Yeah. Well, it's more than that.
Yeah, but it's a test the water with their concept product. It's not, I think that they were hoping that Vision Pro would move the needle against Meta's products. At the moment, it doesn't seem to be doing that.
Well, it's because Meta is gaming and the Vision Pro simply isn't. And that is the problem, because Apple historically has never, ever, ever been strong in games. Never.
Oh, well, you can tell that with the way they've pitched the Vision Pro. There's virtually no gaming content or marketing around gaming on the Vision Pro. It's all about product. It's all about productivity.
That's their strong suit.
Yeah.
But it's a strong suit because they suck in gaming. Apple Arcade notwithstanding, because Apple Arcade, as needed as it is pretty paltry and pathetic next to the rest of the game market on iOS.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've seen so many videos of idiots driving cars wearing this thing or walking around, and it's not what it's designed to do.
But I have some of the people I listen to on podcasts have said they bought them and they used it and now they're not using it anymore.
That's the issue. And that's where Apple doesn't care how many people buy them. Is there a use case for this? Is a big part of it, like you said. I don't think it's the only one nor the main one. I think people won't use it anymore simply because it's just too big and bulky. The technology simply isn't there to make it useful.
Yeah, as I said at the beginning of the show, if I have an iPad and then I have my phone in my pocket, I tend to go to my phone. That's the most convenient thing for me.
But if the Vision Pro was a pair of reading glasses, no thicker, no different, just a pair of reading glasses that you simply pull out of a pocket and slide it on your head, and it costs $125, and it gives you a giant screen right in front of your eyeballs, then you can still see behind it and interact with the world. Is that different?
I'm not sure.
There's a case for AI.
I mean, so I have a pair of AR glasses. They look like Stevie Wonder's sunglasses.
Sure.
And they've got a USB-C connector on, and I can plug them either directly into a USB-C device, or I have like a little third-party. It's kind of a little Android puck that basically drives this thing. You can put videos on it and everything, and it's designed so that you can watch video on a big screen in front of your eyes. Right? I was playing around with this the other day in my kitchen, and my wife said, "Oh my God, what are those?" And I explained. She says, "Take them off. They're weirding me out."
Yes.
Because they were so big, she could see points of light on them from where the screens were being projected into my eyes. She said she could tell that I couldn't see her properly, and she found it very, very uncomfortable. And I think that is the big problem with even the easiest pair of glasses. Is that, even if they were science fiction glasses,
but we have,
and they were just like my regular glasses.
But we have the "Can you please put your phone down when you're talking to me" thing. Yeah,
exactly. That's why, and I think if people know you're wearing AR glasses and they think you might be looking at them, but you might actually be looking at Facebook. I think it's going to put people off, and I don't think that's a social problem. It's not a technical problem.
I agree,
and I don't think we.
But that also goes back to why Apple doesn't care how many Vision Pro headsets that they sell, because this is the test bed. This is where we find out, is this a viable market? I don't know if it is.
No, well, that's my question mark, because as somebody even who, I have the Quest 2, I have been toying with buying the idea of a Quest 3 because it's closer to the Vision Pro capabilities without me spending, well, I can't buy it here anywhere in the UK at the moment, but without me spending that sort of money. I am attracted by the idea of, and I've done this with these glasses I've just talked about, of being able to compute on those. I sometimes use them on the train when I'm doing home office work because it means nobody can see my screen.
Yeah.
And they're good for that. I am attracted to that idea of having, multiple screens around you and being able to do different things at once using one of these headsets. But, that I think that's very much a niche case. I don't see it becoming mainstream. And I think that social problem is always going to be a drag on the AR market. And I don't know whether you can overcome that with technology by making the technology better.
12 years ago, I was seeing a lot of posts on Facebook from the boomer generation and older, complaining that all these kids and all these millennials, they just have their face stuck in their phone all day. When I was younger, we didn't, blah, 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 blah. And now, both at dealerships that I've worked at, when you go into the waiting room, every single person that's up to 90 years old are sitting there with their face in their phone. Yep. So it became something that wasn't couth for a long time to completely mainstream. Completely.
Yeah, it's still not couth. It drives me insane when I see people walking around with their phones in front of their face and then they walk into you.
Yeah, well,
because they're not looking where they're going.
But that's always been a problem. That was there before the phone. I mean, people gawking at something, rubbernecking. I mean, that's nothing new. But, and to be honest, you're pretty short.
Oh, it's my fault for not having enough height.
That's right.
Oh, right. Okay. Fair enough.
We do have shoes that make you higher, David.
I was going to say, technical platform shoes to avoid people walking into me with their phones. It's obviously on my Christmas list.
That's on you, buddy. Yeah. That's. We do got feedback from Brendan Rowan. You want to read it? It's at the top.
It's at the top, but my phone had gone to sleep.
Oh, well. See, if it was a true AI phone, it would have known that you're about to read something, and it would have lit up the screen and went right to that passage.
What it is an iCloud phone, and that means that the TechFan page on my iCloud notes is not updating, so I can't see it.
Oh, well.
Mine hasn't updated since 16th of April, so I'm afraid it's on you.
Yeah, that's weird. I wonder why it's doing that.
I also don't know how to fix it, because obviously iCloud, Apple gives you no usage or anything like that. I don't know. Help.
I wonder why it's not doing it, though.
Don't know.
That's pretty weird.
The standard thing is to log out and log back into iCloud, so I'll do that afterwards.
Here, I want you to read it. So I just texted it to you.
Oh, right, okay. And there it is. Regarding the comment, I don't trust the government, there's no secret cabal, we're the ones who keep electing these people, etc. I commend to you Bertrand Russell's observation about democracy having at least one merit, namely that a member of parliament cannot be stupider than his constituents, for the more stupid he is, the more stupid they were to elect him.
There you go.
Can't disagree with that.
I mean...
But the problem is we are stupid and we do elect stupid people.
Yeah, that's why I wanted you to read it, by the way. It was very English-centric with your accent. We do keep electing the dumb people.
Yeah.
Because that's who we are as a world now. There's so much of our population that is 100% attracted to the strong man. I don't understand why. Yeah. Because they're never in it for the people. No. There's someone that I argue with, quite honestly, too often on Facebook. We have a mutual friend, and he is MAGA. I mean, he has the biggest blinders on. It's clear he's only watching Fox and OAN news services. He simply, it's pretty sad. He's drinking so much Kool-Aid, his hands are starting to turn red.
Yeah.
And it's always the same arguments from him. And when you press this person, like right now, his big thing is illegal immigrants. So I send him a link that, hey, illegal immigrants and an invasion of our country from illegal aliens, they've been making this argument since the 1800s.
Yep.
It wasn't true then, when it was the Italians, when it was the Jews, when it was
the Irish.
When the Irish, when it was, none of it was ever true. None of it.
Yep.
And the language they were using back then, and the arguments that all these Irishmen coming over, they're going to bring disease with them. I mean, it was disgusting, racist bullshit.
Yep.
And fear-mongering. And they're doing it over, and why? Why do they keep coming to this old because it works.
It works. Not only that, it's a very simple message. Politics is actually a very, very nuanced position.
Yep.
You need to consider 15 or 20 different factors when you come up with an idea and actually implement it.
Yep.
And you've got to make sure you don't have unintended consequences or anything. Now, in the past, it used to be that erudite people would stand up and make long speeches laying out these ideas and how they would cater to all of these sorts of things. And the political classes would lap that stuff up, and they would debate and consider how how strong their arguments were or anything. We've moved way beyond that. Now people, they only want to hear a simple message because they want to think about it and then move on. Soundbites.
This is about you hate the same things I hate. You're making my bigotry by masking it in security and all of this. You're masking my bigotry and hatred, the worst of humanity, and to make it sound positive. That, hey, no, it's not that I hate Mexicans or whoever's coming up from the south. There could be terrorists in there. They're taking our jobs. They're getting free health care. It's the same shit that they've always said. None of it is ever true. None of it.
Well, no. Well, not only that, the same people know full well that their party works very, very hard to make things as difficult as to make things as difficult for the lives of poor people.
Yes.
Because they deserve it.
Yeah.
That's their attitude.
They're not working hard enough.
Yeah, and so. My question is always, well, okay, so if the immigrants come in, they're going to be really, really poor, and you make life terrible for poor people. So what's the problem?
Here's the thing. Every time he brings the immigrant thing up, and now his thing is, well, you'll see. I can't wait to talk to you when you'll see. And I'm like, yeah, I'm holding my breath. I ask him every single time, name one thing an illegal immigrant has done to you that's affected your life in any capacity. And he always comes back with, other shit. And I always come back, I'm still waiting for an answer. You still didn't answer my question. What has an illegal immigrant done to you personally, or anyone you know that's affected you negatively, or anyone you know negatively? And they never have an answer to that, because they know in their hearts it's simply because they're brown people, or they're Irish people, or they're Jewish people, or they're Palestinian people, or they're whatever it is. There's always another reason. But when you get to the heart of it, you find out, no, it's just because they're different than you. And you're a small-minded, scared person. And you want to wrap your bigotry and racism around something that sounds positive. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Second part of his email.
Phone's gone off again.
Yeah, your AI is not behaving properly.
No, exactly. Should know that. That's what I wanted. As for comments on TV sets, I haven't owned or watched TV for decades. The last time I lived in a house with a TV set, the interface consisted of an on-off push button and some sort of button dial for switching between BBC One, BBC Two and ITV. The interface worked perfectly well. Why change it? Okay, remote controls came along later, which may not be such a bad thing, but they just mimic the buttons interface. What happened? I understand Brendan's sentiment there, but I would strongly argue that if he's not watched or used a TV for so long, he's not really
qualified to
off
even
the latest. He's not working off the latest information.
Right.
So
a lot of people watch TV. I don't know if you know this, Brendan, but it's kind of a popular thing. They're in color now, by the way. I'm messing with them.
We have a few more channels as well.
A few more.
The difficulty is when you have 50, 60 channels, a simple push button interface on the front is not going to do it. And so that's why people come up with different things. And then as we've talked about, they've got different priorities as well.
Well, there's apps, there's different. I mean, just going into Apple TV gives me more different choices than if I go into Netflix, than if I go into Paramount Plus, than if HBO Max, whatever it is. There has to be a unified way that you kind of peruse what you're looking for. And by the way, this is also where AI could come in handy. Hey, you've been watching The Sopranos. You might like, this show over here.
Yeah, the difficulty then is the conflicting interests, because the reality of the reason these interfaces suck is because the manufacturers are not interested in providing you with the best experience. They are interested in providing you with the experience that allows them to advertise to you better, advertise other shows to you better. And that was
what we were really talking about.
Yeah,
it wasn't so much the interface. It was, hey, it's watching what I'm doing, and it notices that I pause, so it's going to throw up ads now.
Exactly.
It was also that Roku made everybody with a Roku set agree to a term that is, quite frankly, illegal, that, hey, you can't sue us.
Yeah.
Well,
and we have got alternatives. Nobody has to buy a TV. You can go out and buy a corporate monitor, the sort of things that are used in public displays and stuff like that, and you can hook a computer to it and you can get a customized TV experience for yourself.
Yep.
But not many people are going to do that, and unfortunately they are stuck with what manufacturers offer us, and we are in this thing not just on TVs but on the internet, on our apps, on our devices, where everybody is basically marketing at us all the time and want as much information as possible, and that is not in our interests, it's in their interest.
Speaking of their interests, speaking of their interests, and this is the last thing we're going to talk about before we wrap it up because we've already passed an hour. Windows 11 beta testers may start seeing ads in the start menu. This is ironic for me because for a long, long time, when I first started My Mac magazine back in 95, Microsoft was the enemy. They weren't really, but they did some pretty sleazy things and got busted for it, rightfully so. But in the last, I'm going to say decade, maybe even a little bit longer, I've respected what Microsoft has been doing. They really started changing things up, and they were making their operating system way better than it ever had been before. In fact, it got to a point where it's pretty mature and they don't really need to do a whole lot to it. So they've had a lot of goodwill from a lot of people for quite a while to start sticking ads in there so they can make a little bit of revenue on your home screen in the start menu. Seems just nasty and crass to me.
It is, and this started with the Windows 10, so it's been going on for about a decade. But the last few years, particularly since Windows 11 came out, it's become a lot worse. It started with Edge, which is Microsoft's browser. It's basically a fork of Chrome. It uses the same underlying engine. And when they first launched it, they said, look, this is going to be Chrome, but without all the Google cruft. And over time, what they've done is they've replaced it with their own cruft. Their own marketing, rewards, advertising their other services. And also, there's been an ongoing war to prevent you from switching away from Edge as being the default browser in Windows.
Well, even if you go to Chrome, and when you launch Chrome a lot, it will pop up, hey, would you like to make Edge your default browser?
Exactly. Yeah. Like, did you know Edge can do this? And then they said Edge is more power efficient and uses less memory and all of this sort of stuff.
That's where you get in trouble when it comes to a monopoly, when you use your dominance to steer people away.
And they're going down that road again. They haven't learned the lessons from history. And it's really quite unpleasant because, when Windows 11 launched, there wasn't even an interface to change your default browser. You literally could not do it.
Correct.
Now, they've backed away from these things. And effectively what they're doing now is they're doing death by 1,000 cuts. One of the latest ones is OneDrive. OneDrive wants to, on a Windows 11 machine, back up your desktop, your documents folder, your downloads folder to the cloud. And not everybody wants to do that. Some people don't want to use OneDrive at all. They want to use Dropbox or something else. And the problem is, if you turn that off And it will then pop up a thing saying, are you sure you want to do this? Do you really want to turn it on? You say yes. Then what will happen is you'll get an update to OneDrive and it will just turn it back on again.
Yep, it's happened to me.
And it's all of this garbage, and it's making Windows quite unpleasant to use for a lot of people. It's more of a problem for the consumer customers than it is for the enterprise. In the enterprise,
they're going
you
backwards.
Turn a lot of this stuff off,
And it's very frustrating.
It is. And it is actually undermining the very good engineering work that Windows that Microsoft's
100%.
done, because this is being driven by a marketing department whose attitude is just the same as those TV interface makers, is how can we bring up our services revenue? And we do it by pestering people all the time, and they're a captive audience because they've got our product.
Yep.
And it's really, really unpleasant. It's not nice at all, and it's putting a lot of people off. What Microsoft is gambling on this is that most people don't care. Most people we are so non-techie people, in particular, are so used to just having this stuff pop up in front of us all the time that they just develop a blind spot. They just click it away and ignore it as best they can. And if they don't ignore it, they set the defaults, and that suits Microsoft just fine.
Yep.
The problem is, it's like with the TVs, it's a lousy user experience. That's because giving us a good user experience is not in their financial benefit.
No.
And it is horrible.
It's pretty disgusting.
Yeah.
And it's sad that they're going down this route because, just from a personal experience, my opinion of Microsoft had done a 180. It really had.
Yeah.
It was a company that I don't mind their products. When they first came out with their laptop, that was a good laptop.
Yeah.
It really was. I was impressed with it. I considered getting one. Their software seemed to be just doing really well. Their cloud stuff was industry leading at that point.
Yeah.
And how you go from that to what they're doing now is just like, dude.
They've been fortunate so far because all of the regulatory focus has been on Apple and Google and Amazon. And Microsoft has got away pretty lightly so far. And very few people have come at them saying, you need to do something about this. They had a problem with they did have a problem with Windows 10 in the EU with the browser stuff, where effectively the EU forced them to let users choose a default browser in Windows 10.
Yep.
And they had something like a browser ballot screen where when you installed it, it said which browser do you want, and it showed everything that was on the market. So they've had a little bit of that, but they've not had regulatory pressure at home. And I think what the way of these things is they will continue to push the boundaries until all of a sudden the politicians wake up and they're going to turn around and go, oh, hang on a minute, this isn't right. They are fortunate at the moment. The politicians are focused on banning Chinese companies doing what American companies do. But eventually they'll come back and say, well, the American companies need to stop doing it as well. I think Microsoft may be on for having a reckoning if they carry on like this.
Well, with that, we're going to wrap up this episode of TechFan. We hope you guys join us next week for our Geeks Pub. We are still doing the bracket thing. We've got some, I think we're down to 8 movies now. Something like that. We're doing that, obviously, and we've got a lot of geeky stuff to talk about, stuff that we don't talk about here on TechFan, so we hope you join us over there. In the meantime, like Brendan, you can send us feedback. It's theshow@techfanpodcast.com. You can send the message to that same address for the Geeks Pub as well. We've got one this coming week from Guy Searle. And, we really do appreciate you guys listening, and we'll see you in a week. See you then, David.
See you then.